Welcome to another episode of NextGenDDS. I'm Scott Menaker. Been here with Wes Lyon for probably the past year, and I'm thrilled today to welcome our new co-host, Mario Santiago.
Thanks for having me,
Mario,
Scott.
it's great to have you with us. Why don't you give everybody just a little background on your role here and your history, and we'll get rolling.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. You might have heard me on the sister podcast, drilling it down once in a while, talking about different tax and business planning matters. But I work here at McGill & Lyon Dental Advisors, really helping dentists and dental specialists with tax, business planning, and financial planning. How I came about to come to the group is both of my parents are actually dentists.
That's right.
And so growing up, I heard the name a lot being thrown around my household, and my parents started using the group, all parts of the group, the transition side, the tax and business planning side, probably 20-something years ago. So I remember coming to my first official meeting here in the office when I was about 9 or 10. And the office has not changed much.
You didn't tear the office up too bad, did you?
No, I didn't. I always joke about this red couch upstairs. It's the exact same red couch that I saw 20-something years ago. So the office did not change much. But it's been really cool. You know, I didn't go into dentistry, but I didn't stray too far from it. But it's been really nice growing up in a dental household where, you know, we're going to talk about a bunch of topics, but growing up in a household where business wasn't the center of our lives, it was dentistry. And my parents trying to figure out the business side of owning a dental practice, and now being on the other side, advising dentists, really helping them reach financial independence / taxes. And as it relates to this podcast, getting started off on the right foot.
Sure, yeah. And I think that's really important that we understand that dentistry has changed and how we look at things. And I was kind of one of those guys who I have a brother who is a CPA, so I always understood the business side of it and the numbers.
Oh, that's a big asset.
It was a huge piece for me. But a lot of dentists don't. And so today we're going to kind of kick off. We're going to have a series here. We're calling it a season, but our season will be about how you help build a team across different specialties and different things. We'd like to think that we're pretty knowledgeable in lots of stuff, but at the end of the day, I used to describe it a lot as I do teeth. I know a lot about other things, and I just need to, at some point, reach out to smart people to help me manage my business, manage all kinds of things in my life. And so we're going to talk through some of that stuff today. But one of the things I guess that people, go is, I got it figured out, or I can look it up on the internet.
Yeah, especially now.
and I guess back in, my day, there was no such thing as the internet. But today, everything's out there. But we're going to really talk today about the importance of reaching out and recognizing what's the limits of where you're at. I get it today. So as a transition advisor, I'm talking to a lot of young dentists who are going, hey, I'm looking to either buy a practice or I'm looking to become a partner. And I have no idea what to do. And my first response to that is, you're absolutely right. And neither did I. And I had to turn to some people to help me through that process. Because this is huge. I said, in many cases, you're going to potentially go, let's say you're going to go buy $1 million practice. You're going to go borrow $1 million from the bank. And you're going to go spend an extra $300,000 over 10 years in interest. You should take a big gulp, but you want to make a big gulp going, oh crap, am I going to be able to make this work? Am I going to be able to pay this? And you just need somebody to help you look at things, looking at the practice, looking at the statistics, looking at the financials. And I spend a lot of time talking to Mario, Wes, Tyler, and their crew, saying sometimes, does this make sense? Because the financials are crucial.
Yeah.
You're running a business. And that's where, you spend your time helping dentists to understand the business side of things.
Scott, I know a lot of people are going in blind. Could be for different reasons. Maybe they feel like you were saying, they can do it on their own. And obviously getting help costs money, but sometimes people try to take a shortcut and they go in blind and they don't look at the financials and they go into a practice, and next thing you know, they're treading water because they didn't really understand what they were getting into. So I think it's super important to get started off on the right foot, because I'm a strong believer that if you do things the right way from the get-go, you will be more successful down the road, both financially and emotionally.
Yeah, right. I mean, we're all going to hit bumps in the road. but it's nice having somebody to go do that. And
Yeah.
and we're going to spend some episodes talking through, the business and financial side. We're going to talk about your accountant and what you should look for. We're going to talk about your financial advisor. We're going to talk about, insurance. You're going to end up buying disability insurance. You're going to buy life insurance. You're going to buy health. You're going to have health insurance for your staff. You're going to need general, if you own a building, even if you're renting it, you're going to need commercial insurance on the facilities. And you want somebody who's helping you do that.
Yeah.
And if you start getting into, let's say, partnerships where you're going to have buy-sell agreements, and we'll talk a little bit about some legal, somebody on your team, you're going to purchase insurance as part of that. And, I've been very fortunate. I had a lot of disability insurance over the years. But there were certain questions. Fortunately, I never had to use it. So I've spent, you can only imagine how many, tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars. I'm glad I did. But if I ever needed that, I wanted to make sure that plan was right.
Yeah.
And there's just so many different questions out there.
And there's a lot of noise, Scott. I mean, I'd love to hear from you as you were starting your career. I go to a lot of these, here in the South, we have the Hinman Dental Conference, and up in the North or in the Midwest, we got the Chicago Midwinter.
Sure.
And you go to these things and there's like thousands of booths, right? Dentistry is an industry with tons of people trying to get into it, whether it is professional services, suppliers, whatever it is. Was it like that at that point too? And how did you sift through the noise to figure out who do I need?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think part is the first realization.
Yeah.
I need to get somebody to help me. There is a lot of noise because guess what? Everybody wants to get in your pocket.
Yeah. Isn't there some stat about dentists being like one of the top?
We have wasted more money on equipment, new supplies, everybody's, the latest and greatest.
Yeah.
And we may spend some time talking through kind of that, how you have a plan and what you do for those kind of things. I was a CEREC trainer for a long time at, $150,000 piece of equipment and technology that really transformed my practice. But I was helping dentists and I was helping CEREC, working for the company as a rescue trainer for doctors who bought stuff and it was sitting in the corner, this $150,000 investment, and they didn't understand how to use it. And so my role was to go in and kind of help get them out of that. So
cool.
Dentists, we have a tendency, we all get excited by what's new and shiny.
Yeah.
It's why cars, go drive down, and if you're in Charlotte, Independence Boulevard, it's the main drag. Looks like 1,000 car dealerships with 1,000 cars each, but they're selling these things. And why? Because we like that next greatest thing, and you just sometimes you need an advisor sometimes to go, stop.
Yeah.
Don't do that. And we say this a lot to the young guys is when you get out of school, don't go buy an $80,000 brand new car.
Yeah. Don't
do that. If you want to go buy a BMW, do like I did through most of my. I went and bought a used one. That 4 years later, I bought a BMW that was 4 years old. I kept it for 9 years. I spent less than half of what a new one was going to cost me. Mm-hmm. Now, again, we all have our vices and our toys and things, but again, you want to be cautious, and you need somebody as you're looking for advisors, someone to look at you sometimes and go, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just need a sounding board.
And somebody to just call bullcrap on what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because if somebody is always agreeing with what you say, that's a great idea. Hey, Scott, that's a great idea. Oh, that's a great. I can only imagine how much money I would have wasted. Mm-hmm. And you just want to make sure, and that's the role that that you guys play from the business side of trying to just get people to stop. You were asking about my how I got going with it, but I'll never forget my first disability policy I bought was from a company, Northwestern Mutual. And I was probably a year or so out of school. I was still not making any money, but it was time to start buying things. And when we talk about insurance, but getting some disability insurance, buy early because the rate is the cheapest it's ever going to get, and it never goes up. But I just took a cold call from a guy, and he turned out to be just a super nice guy, and he wasn't trying to oversell me, and he became my disability guy. And then he left the business, and the next guy became one of my dear friends. But I always was willing to trust that they were going to look out for what I was doing. And it wasn't, hey, I got to sell you some more insurance.
Yeah.
And do that. You know, but you also got to be willing to ask the hard questions and get somebody, as he said, that's going to tell you the truth. And somebody that if you think they're not doing the right thing, you're willing to fire them.
Yeah. No, you have to. It's business at the end of the day.
You know, I had a good friend of mine, still a good friend of mine, who was handling all of my 401k and investment stuff, personal and business. And he was handling stuff for my kids. I had 3 sons, and he had money he was managing for them. And I just felt like he took his eye off the ball. He had a lot of clients, obviously much bigger than me, doing some corporate stuff, and I fired him. It was really hard to do, but I just felt like I wasn't getting the advice and service that I needed.
But I've seen that a lot, Scott, that people, you know, maybe their advisor, their 401k person, their insurance person is a longtime friend from 25, 30 years ago, and then we look at everything and we realize they haven't been doing a great job, but they're not willing to let them go because they've built that personal relationship. But at the end of the day, business is business, and you have to make sure that you're being taken care of. But I see that a lot where people don't truly look at the advice, but they trust so much on that relationship. But that's a business built on relationships. So, I mean, how did you feel, or now going in, I know you speak to dental students all the time. Who is getting in front of these dental students to try to build this team? And I think dental students don't know what's happening and don't know much about the industry. What have you seen in that space?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the schools are trying to get there a little bit, but I still just think schools are so busy trying to get dentists ready for the clinical side.
Yeah, and that's the important part there.
And they'll get lectures about those things that'll say, you know, broad generalities. Yes, you should get some life insurance, especially if you have a family. You should have disability insurance, especially as you kind of get going and you start making some money. And how do you do that? But some of that's really just going to come from you've got to be talking to people in your community and people that you trust. And if you don't feel, there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of, you know, you come to Charlotte, there's a lot of dentists.
Yeah.
So if you don't find the right one, you move on. But when you find the right one, you don't just go, as you were talking about, where you go, well, that always worked and we're just going to kind of keep it that way.
Yeah.
I think you guys see this a lot from the business side. Dentists kind of get in a rut and they never get out of it. I always looked at it as if I wasn't growing, I was doing something wrong. And if we weren't getting changes and I wasn't moving, but I guess I was just wired maybe a little different than maybe a lot of people. But we're just really saying you really got to, when you start trying to build this team, you've got to figure out what's important to you. Do you need somebody to do some hand holding or not? I in my transition world, I've got clients that, you know, I'm talking to almost every day. They're asking me, sometimes they might seem like pretty simple questions or we're repeating things, but that's just what they need to get them to move and to get them to step over. And other people are like, you know, knock the wall down, get out of my way.
Yeah.
And you just have to figure out what works with your personality as well. It's the same way when you talk to clients, you can't talk to every client the same way.
Yeah.
Because we're all different.
Yeah.
As my wife and I say, I'm not you and you're not me.
You didn't try
I think I'm always right. She thinks I'm probably a little bit on the nuttier side of things.
That sounds dangerous, thinking you're always right.
I know when to dial it back, but you move in different ways and you try and do those things.
Yeah.
But you may end up having to go, as we're talking about this team, you'll get recommendations. And this is how we would suggest it, and I'm sure you're doing the same with is saying, go talk to people that you know in the community. Go talk to, if you're going in with a partnership with a dentist, talk to him and say, I want to talk to your insurance guy.
Yeah.
I want to maybe talk to your lawyer. I want to talk to your financial people. Doesn't mean they're your people. Mm-hmm. It just means that's a place to go start.
Yeah.
And then you talk to your friends. Hey, listen, and you may have friends in that business. Again, just caution you have to be willing to fire somebody if it's not working or you feel like they're not, having your best interest at heart. And then you go through a process of saying, who do I think is going to be the right one?
Yeah.
And if they're not servicing you, we had an insurance guy for a while, saved me a ton of money. We'll talk about that when we get to the insurance side. But then he kind of disappeared. And I still had questions about where my health, this was a group health insurance policy for my office. I had 14 people on it, and my family was on it, and he just kind of disappeared. And it was probably he was getting too busy and too big and dealing with, I had 15 staff. He was dealing with companies with 500 and 600. Mm-hmm. Where was he making the money?
Yeah, not you.
Not me. He was making enough to maybe go to take his family to dinner one night, but he wasn't making a living doing that. And I understand that, but I just had to go out and find somebody different who was going to be responsive to me.
Yeah.
And you then have to hold people accountable. And if they're not, call them on it.
Yeah.
Some of that I would say comes with age. I used to joke with my mom is now 90 years old, God bless her. But there's times that certain things would be going on, and my mother, it was take no prisoners. and I was kind of watching this, and I said to her, were you always like this? And she said, no. She goes, I was kind of a pushover, to a degree. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of this just comes with age.
Yeah.
You just know, sometimes when you're younger, you just go, oh, that's okay. It'll get better. And that can apply to lots of things it can deal with staff, relationships with your spouse, and unless you're working to fix those kind of things, you just kind of let it go. But some of this becomes age where you just go,
I'm not going to roll over anymore.
I'm not sure when the switch goes where you're just not as passive as you used to be.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you're screaming and yelling and threatening people. It just means we're not going to go do this.
Yeah.
I mean, and I would, my staff would I would get on the phone with a vendor that was just not, and I was at the end of my line, and they would come in and they would close the door because I was just getting
your alter ego.
I was getting a little fired up, but I never would have done that at 30.
Yeah.
But at 40, after running a business for a while, and again, taking some lumps and bumps, which we're all going to do. I think you have to do some of that.
But also on the younger side, I'm guessing when you're talking to all these different people, they might be older than you. And when you're on the young side, you probably feel like there's an age gap there. But the older you get, now you're talking to people that are potentially younger than you, and you feel like you have a little bit more authority to actually get some of the things that you want.
I think you just become, I think as we get older, you become more confident in yourself.
Yeah.
I wrote a book called You Don't Know Spit. And one of the things I say, and the things I say to every young dentist and almost any young person getting out of school, is I said, I'm going to give you the best advice you've ever heard. And I want you to remember this forever. And they look at me and they go, what is it? What is it? I said, you don't know shit. And they look at me and I said, now, I don't want you to be offended by that, because when I got out of school, there was so much stuff, all this information, I had no idea what to do with it or how to use it.
Yeah.
And I think as you get older, you learn those lessons, you do these things, and then you become that leader, because as we're talking about building your team, you're not just representing you, they're representing your practice and your staff. And when your staff has an issue, let's say they're running your 401k, they're running your profit sharing plan. they need to know there's somebody there that they can get an answer from in their situation. You know, I had staff sometimes that had to take some, you know, some early dispersals for, you know, health reasons or buying a house. Well, there's ways you can do some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But you got to have somebody there to help do that. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I think what we're really kind of getting to is you really want to understand what you're looking for. You may not have all those answers day one, but you're going to build to that. Go ask the right people. You know, if you're sitting down with, you know, Mario, with you and your team, and you go, hey, listen, I got an insurance question. Well, or I got to, you know, I'm not happy with my CPA. And we'll talk a lot about, you know, picking a good CPA.
Yeah.
Change them. You know, I had one, you know, my wife and I, while I was practicing, my wife was running the front desk, and we started doing consulting with practice. And we were working with about 3 or 4 dentists a year. And it was usually some dentist that had been out 5 to 6 years. It was just at that inflection point of starting to be dangerous, but still not knowing what the heck they were doing. And it just was invariable, sometimes trying to get them to listen and take advice and move. But one client had this accountant, and he was paying him a lot of money. He was never looking at the reports. And I said to him, Doctor, why are you paying this guy $1,500 a month? And he goes, I like him. And I kind of had some choice words. And I said, you know, doctor, I said, that's the stupidest reason in the world. I said, because you're just taking money that should be in your pocket and giving it to somebody else.
Yeah.
They're not providing you with guidance. They're not using this information. For $1,500 a month, you should be getting some real good information from your CPA, not he's just sending you he's sending you a P&L a month later going and never having a conversation with you.
And Scott, I know in the next coming episodes, we're going to take a deeper dive at each of the, you know, parts of your team that you need. But I've gotten questions. We actually had a family come in and their son was going to take over the practice. And I've gotten this question from a lot of young dentists before is, what should I be doing while I'm in school or while I'm in my residency? And back to your point, well, you really should be focusing on the clinical side because you want to make sure you're a good clinician. But try to get knowledgeable about some of these topics. Now we have podcasts such as these, and this is really our goal to make sure that young dentists are getting into this field with at least a little bit of knowledge so they know what's going on and how to pick that team and what they need to look at the business side. That's why we do our newsletter for students for free, just so they can get some information. So try to learn about the industry. You know, if you're interested in practice ownership, read some stuff, read the newsletter. Which we
clearly think is a great idea financially. And I would say from a practice side, you know, being an owner was a terrific part of my career.
Yeah.
I like the business side, but financially, you know, comes it down with Mario, with you and your group, and you guys will show people the benefits of what ownership can be. So, you know, we've kind of stressed, I think, the need of building a team. Stay tuned for the next episodes in this season as we start breaking down each of those different areas and questions you should be looking at and asking. And so thanks. It's been fun for the first one, and we got a lot more coming, and this should be a blast.
All right. Until next one, Scott.
Thanks.